Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to Synchronicity University. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. And this is part of the series of videos looking at the moon in the astrology chart, And this video is looking at the moon in Pisces or in the 12th house. So just because you have the moon in Pisces doesn't always mean you're going to connect to all the things that having a moon in the 12th house might mean, and vice versa. But you will relate to some. So what I would suggest is when you watch this video, whether for the sign or the house of your moon, please be sure to watch the other video that corresponds to the sign or the house. So you're going to watch two videos, one for sign, one for house, to get a more complete picture. And that way, I think astrology is amazing. For one of the reasons it's amazing is because it allows us self-knowledge. And through that self-knowledge, we can make more conscious choices and thereby increasingly live a life that is one of our own choosing based on our own choices. So I absolutely love that about astrology, among a lot of other things that I love about astrology, and this certainly being one of them. The moon is a very powerful symbol, an important symbol in the chart. It speaks to emotional fulfillment. What do you need to feel comfortable within your own self, within your body, with your life, in your world? What do you essentially need to feel at peace with yourself and to feel right with yourself and your skin? What do you need to approve of yourself? What do you need to feel comfortable? Whether it's in the world, whether it's in a very immediate level as well. How do you nourish yourself emotionally and otherwise as well? So moon, sign, and house, very important in a chart. It really is the foundation from which you can go out and do just about anything you desire in the world. So the moon in Pisces. Now Pisces is a sign of plugging into source. It's a sign of communion with the collective. It's different than Aquarius. Aquarius is connected to the collective as a humanitarian statement. But Pisces feels part of the collective. It has a certain sensitivity in it that can make it very much like a sponge. And people with moon in Pisces, these are people who can be deeply intuitive, even psychic, can have a very strong sort of psychic sense. As I said, be plugged into source. Inspiration really is the key for them feeling a sense of peace and calm. And these are people who definitely need a lot of sleep. They need sleep because it is through sleep and in the dream state that they really find a sense of not just about comfort, but that they get the energy that they need. They get the charge they need, the inspiration, the faith, the belief. So whether it's energy just on a physical level or it's just clarity on their life, they're resolving a lot of stuff. Emotional stuff gets resolved a lot in the dream space, more so than other people, when they've got the moon in the sign of Pisces. And there's also a very strong element playing out here that has to do with feeling the emotions of others, right? And feeling and seeing in symbols. And so that's what the dream space does very strongly. The dream space is great for understanding yourself and your world and the different parts of you and what you really want through symbols, right? Every animal means something. Every situation, no matter how fantastical, has some connection to helping you know who you are that much more deeply. Well, when you've got the moon in Pisces, you can live really symbolically as well, where these are people who need to walk through the world with an openness of energy, if you will, allowing the entirety of their environment to speak to them, thereby becoming part of the environment. That's how they feel most at ease with themselves and with the world. Now, this is sort of typically / traditionally the sign of compassion, right? Now, I like to think of this, the compassion really coming from the feelingness of this sign. And so the compassion comes from understanding that in our human experience, there are really a few essential human states, essential human desires, human wants. And regardless of what the surface circumstance is, we are all, in our own way, moving towards these understandings, and all in our own way expressing these desires, learning these lessons, lessons of love and of family, lessons of desire, lessons of coveting, lessons of prosperity, lessons of self-value, lessons of needing to get along with others as well. So these are very universal experiences that we all experience differently in light of the context of our family dynamic, our cultural dynamic as well. And so Moon in Pisces understands this. They can connect with those core human experiences. They can connect with and see and understand what it is at our essence that we're actually going for. So from there, from understanding the core, the archetype, the source, they're able to have that sense of compassion and connection. Now, because they can be like a sponge, Moon in Pisces needs to, okay? That's how you feel right with yourself, is when you allow yourself to connect. But the part of this is that you don't want to connect so much that then energetically you're sort of trying to figure out ways to protect yourself and not always knowing why. Every sign, as I spoke about in the introduction video, every sign has different ways of nurturing themselves. I do think that Moon and Pisces types, in all honesty, it can be tricky for them to figure out what they actually need to nourish themselves. It might not even occur to them. They might not even realize what it is that they're actually going for. And I do think that there are certain signs that are more prone to emotional eating than others. I think Sag is one of those signs, more prone to emotional eating. And Pisces, Moon and Pisces types, more prone to emotional eating as well. So you might think that you're eating something because your body needs it, but it might not be the case. It might be that you need it on a level of energy and spirit. Also, Moon and Pisces types, you do want to watch because the sensitivity is so high, because they have sort of a heightened awareness of other people's energies, which does make them really good, compassionate, yes, but also good at things like being psychic, right? Things that require you to connect with another person's energy. I think about being a parent. I remember watching my friend many, many years ago, young mom, watching her with her newborn son, and she was right tuned in with her son. She was right tuned into that kid. She was seeing, how is he feeling? What's going on with him? She didn't have to question so much because she could connect with his energy and sort of work with it and align herself with it and go along. So she had this very powerful kind of intuitive understanding that I don't always see with all moms. And I think that's a very Moon and Pisces kind of thing, to just sort of energetically connect with others. But the thing is, and especially if you're one of those people who's like, psychic, you've got a really powerful Moon in Pisces, what you really want to watch is, and I've seen this with Moon and Pisces types, is that they have that tendency to gain weight. And so I do think that Moon and Pisces, along with Moon and Sag, more prone to emotional eating. Also Moon and Cancer types as well. But to experience like real fluctuations in weight, it's motivated differently. But for the Piscean moon, it is really motivated by a desire or need to sort of create a shield, if you will, between themselves and the world, because they can be so sensitive. So there are ways to navigate that, and there are ways to find that sense of being protected while still being open. Now, it does take awareness, it does take being conscious, and it does take channeling the energy to your advantage. So I think this is true with all moon and water sign types. You want to channel the energy to your advantage. The way that you do that, the way you channel energy to your advantage, is that you actively focus it. You focus it on the direction you desire it to go. And so, Moon and Pisces types, they need an imaginative outlet. And this is where they really can be at their best, if they have some imaginative outlet, some artistic outlet at that. This can be anything from photography, right? This can be being a director in movies. This can be being an actress. This can be a musician, tends to be really big with these types as well, because they're connected to something that is beyond the mundane. And, you know, they say music, I've heard it said that there's nothing greater than creating music because it brings form and it manifests what ultimately before was just energy. It is the beginning of manifestation, which is why a lot of religions, religious texts, they talk about how in the beginning there was sound. Like that's one of the first things, the first levels of manifestation in the physical reality. And, you know, I've also heard it said, and this actually goes to Iamblichus. So Iamblichus was a Neoplatonist. He practiced some occult practices, philosophy, occult philosophy. So he might be somebody you want to look into if you're so inspired by that stuff. But I remember studying him briefly in graduate school, and he said, and this was one of his beliefs, his students was Plotinus, so both of them have contributed to our modern Western occultism, understanding of the occult in the modern Western world. But they sort of are like the godfathers of the modern occult movement. And they said that, Iamblichus and Plotinus, they talked about how, you know, you can have your ritual, right? Let's say you want to do a ritual because you want to manifest something specific. Again, these guys were, you know, occultists, right? And philosophers. But you want to manifest something, you want to put together a ritual. Well, look, you can bring together all the right substances with all the right correspondences. You can time it to the exact right planetary day, planetary hour, and planetary moment. And you can have that moment, you can set it all up, but until you actually speak the word, your intention has not manifested. But once you do speak the word, it has already manifested. So to them, it wasn't about, you know, the moment you light the candle or the moment that you know, burn the incense. It was about the moment you speak that manifestation has begun, that you've begun sending that vibration into the world that will come back to you, that will return in terms of physical manifestation. But the seed of physical manifestation starts in spirit, yes, but you need to find a way to have it become the vibration of sound, which will then eventually, moving through the layers of manifestation, eventually create physical manifestation for you. And so this is something that, on an intuitive level, the water signs, moon and water, very much understands this, and especially a moon in Pisces understands this, that things manifest, the beginning of manifestation happens in sound. Now thought, yes, thought is powerful. That's awesome. That's very Aquarian, that manifestation begins in thought. But it isn't until you speak it that it has actually come forward, right? It goes beyond the seed. The seed has begun to grow. The thought might actually be the seed, but in order to really bring it to life, to have the seed burst into something tangible, sound comes next. Sound is where manifestation happens. So this is something Moon in Pisces people understand, and that's where energy can be directed to your advantage, however you utilize that sound. So you might be somebody who decides to become a professional artist, which is great, but you might be somebody who decides instead to just utilize things like mantras, things like sound, Tibetan sound waves, you know, chanting as part of your spiritual practice, so that you can channel your sensitivity and thereby create that sense of focus that your emotions need, that then will allow you to utilize your sensitivity to your advantage while taking care of yourself, so that you're not just this, you know, open sponge. But again, it helps. You want to make sure that you're continuously communicating with your environment. Now, if you have the moon in the 12th house, this to me is about seclusion. Traditionally, the 12th house was monasteries and hospitals and prisons. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have placements in the 12th, in fact, I think most people, if not all people I've met who had places in the 12th house did not end up in prison. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been in prison or will go to prison. I think that this is about seclusion of spirit, but it's also about seclusion of drive as well, and particularly your emotional drives. This has to do with supplementing, sort of putting aside whatever the needs are of whatever planet is there for certain extended, sometimes extended, periods of time. And so you might go through periods of time where you, especially with the moon in the 12th house, say, I don't want to be in a relationship right now. I don't need to be in a relationship right now. I don't want emotional attachments. And we'll actively remove that part and divert that energy in another way, emphasizing different parts of you instead. Now, that doesn't mean, like if you say, I want to avoid emotional entanglements, well, that's fine. That doesn't mean you don't find other ways to honor that energy. You might instead emphasize the energy of the sign of the moon. But I have found people with moon in the 12th house may go through periods of chosen, singlehood, if you will, right? I don't want to necessarily say celibacy. That's more of the moon. That's more Mars in the 12th house. But the moon is much more about heart. It's much more about who you're going to align yourself with emotionally, not necessarily physically. And so there might be periods of time where you have to understand certain relationship dynamics, sort of go off on your own to understand those dynamics. But these people will need periods of seclusion. They will need times to cut off the world and to say, okay, I'm going within, I'm figuring myself out. The 12th house also has to do with baggage that you carry, like emotional baggage that you don't even realize sometimes that you have, stuff that trips you up, stuff that gets in your way, and you don't always acknowledge it. This is the moon in the 12th house. You will go through periods of time where that will come to light and you'll be letting go of a load. You will realize, wow, I've been carrying that for a good 12 years. I've been carrying that dude for 20 years. I am ready to put that hurt down. I'm ready to put that experience down and to feel the shift, like literally feel a shift in energy as a result. And again, as I said, the dream space, the 12th house, Pisces energy has to do with the dream space. And it really is in those private moments that a lot becomes illuminated for you, because it's almost like you need to have your defenses down in order to really tap into the subconscious mind. These are also people who would do really well with tapping into the power of their subconscious mind. It needn't be as ritualized as the 8th house would like, right? The 8th house is very much law of attraction, the occult practices. It needn't be that. It can just be a stated intention. If you want to incorporate some elements of ritual, that's cool. But really just the stated intention to move yourself to greater consciousness, to bring to illumination what it is maybe that you haven't wanted to look at, but now you're ready to bring to light so you can release. Just that stated intention will ensure that things do come up. Now, I gotta say, these can be people who like to keep their private life really private. So moon and 12th house types are not necessarily going to be the type who are going to, shout their love from the rooftops. These are going to be people who are very private about their love life. When they really genuinely care about somebody, they are going to hold the details very close to heart, are not likely to announce the big details so much. And these are going to be people who ultimately want to be with somebody with whom there's an understanding that goes beyond words. Moon in Pisces, and to a certain extent, moon in 12th house people as well, they want somebody with whom they have an unspoken understanding. It's like there's an unspoken feeling that you should know what I need because you love me. You love me, you should know what I need. These people want to be swept away, but they don't always realize how that actually prevents them from getting exactly what it is that they say they want. So a part of the life lesson is to learn to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about what your actions are saying and how they can be interpreted. And if you're making assumptions about what you think other people should know about what you need, then oftentimes you're going to realize that it's you that didn't allow that information to fully come to light. And once you do, taking greater ownership for your emotional needs, finding ways, healthy ways to share that, to communicate that with the right people where it feels safe, you can find yourself having just that type of very important and very meaningful and profound bond that you truly seek. Well, thank you so much for watching. Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, YouTube comments. Please keep communicating. I absolutely love interacting with you guys. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you so much for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Thank you for watching this lesson as part of Synchronicity University. You can go online at synchronicityuniversity.com or click on your screen if you're on YouTube right now to access even more video lessons, to access horoscopes, interviews with some of the most amazing astrologers in the world, and so much more.